guys, another video for our How to Do Stuff in Japan playlist. So over the years, when we've made videos for this playlist about how to do stuff in Japan, or sometimes just heads up videos talking about things that you might experience when you come to Japan, there's often been comments from people, either if I say I find this thing's particularly difficult to deal with, there's always comments from people who say, oh yeah, I could deal with that, that's not a problem. Or we get the opposite, where I say, yeah, if you come to Japan, you really got to deal with this thing, you know, and there'll be somebody who'll say, oh, I couldn't deal with that, right? So it depends on our personality type, doesn't it? What we find easy to deal with and what we find difficult to deal with. Also, often what happens is when you first come here, you can sort of deal with everything because it's all interesting and it's all new and it's all fun and interesting and exciting, and you can put up with everything. Well, now we've got to do this. Oh, okay. So usually when you first come to Japan, it's much easier. Usually, not always, but when you first come, usually it's much easier. Also, it depends on the sort of personality. You know, some people are more flexible and will go along with things much more easier than others. Those guys obviously have a better time here. Obviously, ideally, as when we visit any other country, or even our own country, the more stuff you can just go along with, and the more stuff that you can just take in your stride and deal with, the better. And ideally, if you can just deal with everything and do things the way everybody else is doing them, you know, conform would be the word that comes up a lot, wouldn't it, when we talk about these things? Conforming in Japan is really, really important, you know, probably more so than most other countries. So if you can conform to the way everybody else is doing things and what everybody else is doing, and not do things that nobody else is doing, obviously, you know, you'll have a better time in Japan, and also you'll probably do better as far as getting job opportunities and all sorts of other opportunities as well. If you conform, definitely there's more opportunities. That's sort of been the underlying point of most of those how-to videos and those heads-up videos, hasn't it? You know, that if you conform, you know, because you don't have to. You can come here and just do whatever you want, usually, within the law, and you won't have any obvious consequences, but the consequences are probably more subtle. But the point of this video is, there's a guy I run into here sometimes, an English guy, and we talk about things. And his set of things that he finds easy to do and my set of things that I find easy to do are a bit different often. And so he'll often say things that he does, and I'll just listen to him and sort of shake my head and go, nah, nah. So we're laughing about that recently, so he started to do that too, that, you know, when I tell him something that's happening, and he, nah. So recently I was talking to him about, we were talking about something about the temples, and he said the two-hand clap thing, or shrines. At shrines they bow and they do two-hand clap and they bow again, and they do it whenever they visit a shrine. A lot of people do, not everybody, but most people do when they visit a shrine. And at New Year we do it too. We go to the temple, go to the shrine and do the two-hand clap thing, and he refuses to do it. That's one of his nah things that he just refuses to do, you know. And it doesn't really matter. He can do that. His thinking is he's a Christian and that he doesn't want to do that stuff. My thinking about that particular one is that it's just a cultural thing. That for some Japanese people it has a spiritual meaning, but for most Japanese people it probably doesn't. It's more just a cultural thing that they do, you know. So we all have our own nah things, you know. There's some things you've got no choice. There's some things we've made videos about, you know, when you've got to go to City Hall to do some paperwork, or you've got to do something like that. You've got no choice. You know, when you've got to do things with your driver's license or something like that, there's no choice. You have to do that. And then when you have a Japanese partner or a Japanese boss, or, you know, there'll be other things that you can't say nah, you just got to go along with it whether you like it or not, you know. But you do have your choice things where you can say nah, right? So I made a few points here, just my own personal ones. Now, you know, some people say, why is that a problem for you? No doubt, that's why I'm making this video. A couple of mine. One is the onsen. So over the years I've had different guys say to me, hey, you know, let's go to the onsen, you know, which I hear, in my head I'm hearing him say, hey, let's go get naked together with a tiny towel and have a chat, you know. And of course in a lot of other countries other than Japan, you know, nuding up in the onsen, nuding up in a hot spa is a normal thing for people to do, you know, and a lot of people are comfortable with that. But I'm just not, you know. I'd much rather go sit in an izakaya somewhere and eat some tasty food and drink a beer, rather than nude up in a onsen somewhere with a bunch of Japanese dudes, you know. That has no appeal to me at all, so that's a nah thing. And over the years when it has come up, sometimes I've just made excuses like, oh, I'm sorry, I have something else I have to do, or I have to work. That's always a good excuse. Occasionally I'll just tell them it's a cultural thing that, you know, where I come from, you know, we didn't used to nude up together, so I'm sort of not comfortable with it, you know. So again, you know, you've got a choice about ones like that. Usually, unless your boss asked you. I don't know what you do if the boss asked you. And then food, of course. Japanese people usually not very fussy. They're brought up that way from when they're children, to eat everything and not be fussy, and it's considered to be very childish to be fussy. But you can, and of course it's easier. It's not easy to be fussy if you're at someone's house, of course, but you can be fussy if you're in a restaurant, because you get to choose what you want to eat off the menu. So, a couple of my nah is natto, which, you know, most foreign people don't like natto. Some do, but most don't. So natto is one of my nah. And horomon. Horomon is intestines, animal intestines. Nah. Nah. ALT job. Now this is a bit, it depends on your personality again, you know. Some people love the ALT jobs. You know, recently I had an opportunity at my kids' school. I went to my kids' school to watch a lesson. They have this thing now and again where the parents can come watch a lesson. And just by chance it happened to be an English lesson. So I got to watch the Japanese English teacher. The English teacher was a Japanese person, and her ALT, who stood in the corner and performed some English on demand. Can you ride a unicycle? Right? So again, some people see the ALT job as a great opportunity to get a visa to come to Japan for a year. An easy job that's low stress. They don't have to put a lot of thinking or planning into the lesson usually, because the teacher does that. They get some money, they get somewhere to live. Some people see it as an excellent way to come to Japan for a year, you know, and I've met lots of people who've loved it. But for me, nah. And as I was standing watching that dude in that class, nah. And some of you might remember, not so long ago, maybe a year or so ago, I actually got a phone call from someone offering me an ALT job in our city. And they were desperate, you know, it was during COVID and people weren't coming from other countries, so they were desperate for ALTs and just could not do it. I'm also a bit old and fixed in my ways. I think that's another thing. You know, if you're a bit more flexible, you know, not always, but young people tend to be a bit more flexible, don't they? You know, not always. And lots of old people are quite flexible, so that's often the case. But this old man tends to be a bit old and inflexible, and often stuff like that. And can't do that. Queuing for food. Queuing for food. We've talked about that before. You know, standing in a line for an hour to buy some noodles. You know, Japanese people are quite happy to do that. They feel like if you stand in line for an hour to get these really good noodles, that anticipation and that how lucky you are to finally get to the front of the line and buy the noodles. You know, Japanese people love that stuff. And nah. Nah. I'm not queuing in line for an hour to buy some noodles. Nah. Or to buy any food, really. Sorry. Japanese TV. And again, when you first come to Japan, usually Japanese TV is fascinating, but nah, you know, it's off and on in our house, and I'll walk past and have a look at it, and it's just always the same stuff. You know, we've talked about this before, and it's nah, Japanese TV. Cringe, you know. When you first come here, it's fascinating because it's all this Japanese culture stuff and Japanese language stuff, and it's just fascinating. But like TV in most countries, it tends to be the worst of the culture, you know, the cringy stuff. So, oh, really? Again with that, you know? Nah, Japanese TV. So yeah, that's the nah thing. And you can do it, you know, those things. You know, I can say nah to all those things, and my friend can say nah to the hand clapping, and it's not a big deal. You know, these are the things that can be your nah things, because it doesn't really, none of those really affect anybody else, you know. So different people would have different ones. No doubt there are a lot of people who watch our videos who live in Japan, and no doubt those guys will have their nah things, probably some of these, and also some different ones that are their own, you know. So it's some some things most of us, or a lot of us, agree on, like natto, right? Those of you who haven't tasted natto, it's the texture and the flavour and the smells, just serious, you know. Some people like it, but the majority of people go nah to natto, and that's okay. So it's just a matter of picking your battles, you know, which things you can say nah to and which things you can't. Obviously, a lot of these things depends on who you're with at the time. And as long as it doesn't affect anybody else or make anyone else uncomfortable, usually you can get away with it, you know. It's just, you learn over time here what you can say nah to and what you can't, you know. When the local dude, the local old man turns up to collect $50, you know, turns up to collect 5,000 yen for the local festival, it's not a nah thing. Recently, someone talked about the NHK license. I made a video about it years ago. NHK turn up and you've got to pay so much a year if you've got a TV for your TV license, and there's actually a law that says you have to pay it, but a lot of people refuse to, and a lot of Japanese people refuse to. And what I used to do before I was married, when the NHK guy would turn up, as soon as I opened the door, he's got his little NHK ID, and I'd go, hello, how are you? In English, right? And he'd go, NHK desu kedo, nani, and I'd say, oh, sorry, do you speak English? Do you speak English? And, terubi, nani, and I'd go, oh, sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. And they'd give up. They'd give up. It's too hard, and leave some paper with you and go away. However, once I was married, so that used to be a nah thing for me. NHK, nah, I'm not paying that. But after I was married, I couldn't do that anymore because my wife would be too embarrassed and too uncomfortable about it. So, you know, again, it depends on your situation. It depends, you know, whether you live alone or live with someone else, or whether it's a Japanese person or not a Japanese person, and their thoughts on the topic, you know, because you can make, if you've got a Japanese partner, you can drive them crazy really quickly if you keep going nah to everything, because that's not what they're used to. They're used to everybody going hi and everybody doing the same thing. So again, you've got to choose your battles, you know. You've got to choose your battles, what you're going to say nah to and what you're going to go along with. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to the comment section, because I know lots of the people who watch our videos live here, and lots of people who watch our videos have been here before. Also other people who haven't been here before but have seen videos that we've made over the years that they've said nah to. You know, we've talked about stuff, things like one that comes to mind is talking about trust and jealousy, and how Japanese people don't show jealousy. It's really, really, really not cool to show jealousy. So if your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband goes out and doesn't come home till 6 o'clock the next morning, it's not cool to be jealous or ask questions or anything like that. It's okay to say, did you have a good time? Yes, and then leave it at that. And a lot of people, when I made that video, I went, nah, couldn't do that. So, it depends on your personality, doesn't it? It'd be interesting to see what people's nah things are. There'll be some really flexible, easygoing people who don't have any nah things, probably. And other less flexible people who probably have a lot. So, anyway, a bit smoky today. This time of year, spring's started. So what's happening is the farmers are burning off the dead grass in their fields. So if we get a lot of wind and a bit of rain, the sky will go blue. But at the moment, it's been really dry, and the farmers are all doing their burning off thing. And you just get this sort of a grey sky, which is a bit of a shame. But it'll pass. It'll pass. We've got rain coming in a couple of days. So it'll rain for a couple of days, and then after that, it'll be blue again. So anyway, there was that. Nah, in Japan. Nah. More videos coming soon.